everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Sunday. Hopefully you guys are doing well and you're enjoying your weekend. This is going to be the astro weather for the week of July 16th through the 23rd. We're going to be taking a look at the transits going on in the skies throughout this next week, day by day, just to give you guys a little bit of insight as to how to plan. We got some stuff going on this week. It seems like there's something going on every week, but we definitely have some pretty big Venus-related changes, some nodal changes. We're going to get right into it. But if you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western and evolutionary astrologer. I work both with astrology as well as tarot to make sense of what's going on in the world. If you like my content and you want to see more of it, click the button below. Make sure you're subscribed so you're alerted as to when we have videos coming out on the channel. We've got live readings on Friday nights. We've got the astro weather on Sundays, new and full moon reports, horoscopes, and much, much more. Thank you guys so much, as always, for your likes, your comments, your shares, and your subscriptions. And please consider donating or joining my memberships to be able to support my work because I'm a full-time content creator and I want to continue to keep bringing you guys more content, hopefully more educational content in the future. But let's get right into it. Let's take a look and see what we got going on. So those of you guys who are my Sunday crew, thank you for joining me early on Sunday morning. As you guys are waking up today, the moon is in its home sign of Cancer, and we're actually getting ready to come into that new moon phase that we're going to be experiencing here pretty soon. Basically, this is kind of a get quiet, relax type of vibe, preparing for the new moon, which is going to be about setting new intentions. That will be taking place tomorrow on the 17th. Some aspects minor. We're going to see that the moon is still picking up trines to Saturn, so it's emotionally stabilizing. This is a water trine, so it's emotional and it's sensitive. And this is also the last bit of energy that the moon is getting in contact with the south node in Scorpio, because tomorrow the nodes are going to change into different signs. So enjoy this really emotional, sensitive, healing, almost like psychic water trine that you're kind of picking up between the moon, the south node, and Saturn. Really great to stay hydrated, spending time by water, really connecting to things more deeply emotionally. And it can also be about setting new emotional boundaries, right? Saturn can be about limitations. Definitely we're going to see themes revolving around that this week as we start to see oppositions between Cancer and Capricorn. And as the moon goes through this sign, it's also picking up sextiles to Jupiter. So this is about kind of stabilizing things physically, expanding things. It's about growth. And while we're focusing on making changes in the Taurus area of our chart with Jupiter and Uranus, the moon responds to that. So it feels more safe and more kind of secure. So we have some nice sextiles just prior to coming into this new moon in Cancer. Now the moon is going to continue to keep moving through this sign all day. Some of you guys may feel inclined to want to spend more time at home with your family, almost kind of like preparing your house or getting things organized for this next week, because the moon in Cancer is much more about kind of quiet and domestic type related things. So that kind of mixed with a new moon does make me feel like this is a kind of lazy at home Sunday, cooking some comfort food, hanging out with our family and friends, and curling up somewhere on the couch and maybe watching a movie. So hopefully you guys are getting an opportunity to really enjoy this Sunday going into Monday. Not going to see too much else happening in the skies other than, Venus obviously is really slowing down. So we're going to take it now to Monday, which is going to be the 17th, tomorrow. And we're going to see this new moon that will be setting up at 24 degrees. So as the new moon is coming together, we also start to see the moon now finally sextile Uranus. So it's about like, what changes do we need to make emotionally, and like, what is our body telling us in regards to our security and our overall needs physically, emotionally, in terms of our self-esteem, our resources. So I would say really practice Sunday and Monday, being in tune with the body, doing something that's going to allow you to kind of ground, go outside, take a stroll, maybe do a little bit of gardening, take time to be outside and kind of connect with the element of earth if you can on Monday. So that way you can be more aware of what's actually needing to change and how those physical shifts can kind of better support our emotional, home, or domestic needs. Now the moon's going to come to 24 degrees, so that's going to make that new moon. We see that once a month. The sun and moon together is essentially planting new seeds for the better part of the next 28 days. So this is a new lunar cycle that's starting. The moon will be growing into a full moon for the next 2 weeks. But really it's kind of showing us a snapshot of what the astrology has in store for us for the better part of the next 28 days. And if you guys have been watching some of my videos talking about the nodes changing signs, the new moon in Cancer, the Pluto square the nodes, this is that time that I have been telling you guys since May of 2023. Hey, prepare, get ready, because the summer is going to be rather intense. I did touch on that in my most recent nodal video, so if you haven't seen that, I have lots of content about the nodal shifts. But essentially, lots taking place on the 17th. Not only do we have a new moon in Cancer, which is about getting quiet and really planting seeds for new home, new emotions, focusing on our security and where we're taking action to take better care of our emotions, but it's happening while the nodes shift, and the nodes change signs about every 18 months. They go through the various signs where we have the north node in one sign, the south node in another, creating that polarity, like I said, shifting every 18 months. But this is the first time in about 18 years that we are going to experience the north node in Aries and the south node in Libra. And the nodes are directly connected to the moon. So what aspects the moon is going to be making to the nodes is quite important. So we will see that just after the new moon. The moon will move into Leo and it will square. But we're actually going to start to see the effects of it right before that happens. So when the north and the south node are sitting at 0 degrees, it's essentially saying we're completing what's been 18 months of lessons in the Taurus and Scorpio related kind of topics out in the world. The nodes very much do relate to where we're all going in terms of our evolutionary growth. So the same way that you can look at nodes in your natal chart as what you're working towards, where there's growth, and like what qualities or good karma or experiences you're bringing in from the past, we can work with the nodes in transit and have a better idea of, okay, collectively, we're all going to be doing more of this north node type of theme. So the north node in Aries is going to bring a lot more energy. It's going to bring action. This is a Mars ruled sign. It's cardinal, so it wants to initiate. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so it wants to start new things. It wants to be the first. It wants to be energetic. It wants to be athletic. It's all about courage and passion and desire. And it has this very, like Martian energy. There's a lot of stamina with planets or aspects that happen to be in Aries. So everybody's got Aries somewhere in their chart. Even if you don't have any planets in Aries, the north node making this shift is going to really activate, encouraging you to have more courage or to initiate or start something new in that area of your chart, in that particular house. Now on the polarity, we're going to see that the south node is going to move into Libra. So we are observing, we're acknowledging, we're seeing, okay, there's something out of balance with relationships, or maybe there's a tendency to be too people pleasing. Maybe we're moving away from focus on and emphasis on partnerships. Maybe we're going to see a lot of people that are going to be kind of trailblazing and going off, in their own direction, right? Following their bliss. There can be, on the positive end of the south node in Libra, we can see that there can be lots of like twin flames, soulmate type of connections. There can be relationships that are coming back from the past. So relationships with people from our past in this lifetime or previous lifetimes, there can be connections too. South node Libra is going to make it more challenging to mediate and agree to things, because that north node in Aries is going to be so focused on getting what it wants. that it's going to be challenging trying to find the dynamic of, the middle ground basically this week. So really complex astrology. We're seeing lots of cardinal placements setting up at 29 degrees, which represents a turning point, a completion, a crisis. As we're kind of moving away from all of this cardinal energy, then we're kind of setting up for Leo season, and we're going to get an idea of how that energy is being carried through. So we'll talk about that more in the next week or so, probably also in August horoscopes. So you guys are going to really, really feel this, right? So if I break this down one by one, new moon intentions being set in Cancer. What are you nurturing, right? How can we look at the past and also honor the present and really focus on our emotions and our intuition and tapping into creating more security? When this new moon comes in, it's also going to be in a trine to Neptune. So it's going to be asking you to visualize, meditate, manifest, pray, set intentions, take time alone to reflect on what it is that you would like to create, what's coming in, what your vision for that is, but also where there's a need to really listen to the emotions and what the emotional body is saying in regards to what direction we're going to be going in and what our intentions are. So these trines are water trines, so they're more sensitive, right? They're more psychic. We may be feeling a little bit more emotional and overwhelmed. I mean, come on, we've got the sun and the moon aligning in this sign. So we might notice on Monday that we're just a whole lot more emotionally sensitive than usual. And I think everybody's going to look around and go, there seems to be like some pressure today as the moon continues to keep moving through Cancer and it starts to come into an opposition with Pluto. Now that's some heavy stuff. The North and the South node will have moved by then. So we're looking at the evening hour on Monday. This is when the crunch kind of starts to come in because the moon is activating an opposition to Pluto. So there's some feeling of being threatened, or there being some, outside relationship or experience with the outside world or with superiors or with, government figures. That's all Capricorn. It could be bosses, parents, people out in society who wear uniforms or who are, making decisions about the world that's challenging the collective, right? The moon can talk about the collective emotionally. So I think people are going to feel a little on edge. They're going to feel a little threatened. So we've got 29, 29, 29, 29. The moon on one side squaring the nodes, saying that there is likely going to be very karmic events taking place. I would say really July 17th all the way until the sun opposes Pluto. So I think that's the 22nd or the 23rd. But you may start to feel this pinch this particular evening. Now, if you have any planets or if your sun, moon, or rising, let's say 27 to 29 degrees are the cardinal signs, pay attention because you're going to feel the pressure because you're going to experience that square. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising, and late degree placements. And equally, my 0 to about 1 degrees fixed signs because you're within a 2-degree conjunction. So Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, you guys are not quite off the hook. You're still feeling this crunch also. But I think Taurus and Scorpio are going to be glad to see the nodes kind of leave their signs, and now they can kind of get the show on the road with starting to kind of work on other things relating to their health and also their spiritual kind of selves, passing that torch now to Aries and Libra, who are going to be leading the way with these nodal transits as well as the eclipses. Now, something you want to keep in mind with this North and the South node that has now moved. Now we have 2 other planets, I guess really the same planets that we've been looking at for the last 2 years, because Venus rules Taurus, Mars rules Scorpio, but now it's kind of flipped, right? Now the North node is in Aries, so we're really looking to Mars and Mars transits to kind of show us where we're going collectively, to be able to really kind of get the juice of that North node in Aries. We're looking at Venus because it rules the South node and aspects that Venus is making. That's going to give us some insight in terms of what is being released, what we're reflecting on, what we're looking at in the past, and what's up for kind of reevaluation. So as you get into the habit of listening to, astrological previews, if you listen to my channel, if you listen to other people's channel, you always want to peek up when you hear, oh, Mars is opposing this, Venus is conjunct that, because it's going to actually reverberate off of the nodes, even if it's not making an exact aspect, right? Okay, this is how you guys really learn how to make astrology work, and you can use it in like a predictive way that really helps make sense, because it adds a whole other layer, similar to like midpoints and progress charts that you may not necessarily always see with transit. So pay attention, especially because this week we're definitely going to see some Mars and some Venus stuff that's going to be taking place. All right, so 29 degrees, the moon's going to pick that up on Monday. As a reminder, we've got the North Node. It's going to sit at 29 degrees for a couple days. If you guys remember, around, what was it, April 19th, 2023, we had a solar eclipse in Aries at 29 degrees. If you guys remember what was kind of going on at that point in your life, that was being triggered, right? That crisis solar eclipse. The North Node obviously hadn't moved to Taurus yet, but the actual eclipse itself was initiating a new set of eclipses that were going to come with this particular nodal change. And we know that eclipses unfold over time. It's not just something that happened over like a week or so. When planets square or oppose, or when the nodes reactivate that particular degree, we can see themes pertaining to that period of time. So something you're going to notice this week is you are going to see that the sun and the moon are going to square that 29 degrees. And what we call this is the first 90-degree opening square. So it's like, hey, some things happened in April. Now we're looking at the aftermath of how that's affected us emotionally, how that's affected us on like a home or a domestic type of way, and how that is, really continuing to keep unfolding. And we're going to have the North Node sitting at 29 degrees, so it's reactivating that eclipse. So if you guys go back and watch my solar eclipse in Aries video, I remind you that this is the time that you're going to see more unfold. It got activated when Jupiter hit 29 before it went into Taurus, and now it's getting activated again. We'll see more in the fall as Mars opposes this degree, but it's another reason why we're going to kind of feel the pressure turned up a little bit. That's what Pluto does. Whenever we see Pluto oppositions or squares, it does resemble, or kind of symbolically, it's like getting cooked, right? And it's like everybody knows the story of the frog being in the pot, right? Constantly the water is getting warmer and it's getting warmer, it's getting turned up, and the frog doesn't realize it's getting cooked. This is the week that many people are going to realize they're getting cooked because Pluto is now hitting that 29 degrees, even though it's retrograde, in a square with the nodes. Now, that represents wherever Capricorn is in your chart, there is a need for breakdown. We need to tear something down. We need to uproot something. We need to really reevaluate. Are we giving this thing too much power? Is there too much control in this area of our life? Where do we reevaluate and find the balance when it comes to power? Pluto square South Node in Libra. And where are there businesses, structures, people out in society? Where are there like monsters in our closets that are keeping us from having the balance that we need in relationships? And with Pluto square the North Node, where are we getting almost like a little irritated, or we're feeling antsy, or we're feeling like we need to stand up and we need to do something, or we need to take initiative in some way to challenge the existing and growing power structures out in the world right now. So once again, really unique astrology, but I do feel like how people are going to start intuitively and instinctually tapping into that North Node in Aries at the late degrees of Aries is going to cause some relationship issues. The boat is going to get rocked this week because the South Node at 29 degrees of Libra can be symbolic and connected to the degree of divorce, separation, breaking apart. And that's kind of in the air for other reasons, right? We're getting ready to see Venus go retrograde this week, so that's part of it. But we start to kind of realize, okay, what's going on here? I'm reacting or responding to something very emotionally because I don't feel safe. I don't have security. And so we're going to start to see that create some cracks in certain relationships, in trust, in certain alliances. So whether it's, you know, a relationship you have with a romantic partner or a spouse, a friendship that's tested, a relationship with a business partner, or some kind of other alliance that you have in your life, you might start to realize like, whoa, like I think I've given, you know, too much power to this situation and I'm not feeling like this is kind of in control, or I'm not feeling like I'm getting what I need. So the key here is to be aware that everybody's going through this like cosmic cooking this week, and to be more concerned and more consumed with what you can do on a personal level than how you're responding to the outside world. Because unfortunately, the lower octave of Aries is anger, violence, war, cutting, burning, fighting, right? It can be kind of brutal, right? Aries can be very much tapped into that really kind of animalistic, you know, masculine energy. And I've heard some people, you know, make some comments and some stuff in the comment section, which we all know is one of the circles of hell. Pick one. And I think it's common that a lot of people don't understand, so I just want to address this. When I talk about the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra, this isn't me saying men are good, women are bad, okay? Because some people kind of got that perspective. That has nothing at all to do with gender. It has more to do with masculine Mars-related energy, which is external, linear, right? It's about attacking, it's about taking action, it's about starting a fire, it's about, you know, working up a sweat, it's about going and initiating something. Versus the South Node in Libra, which is more feminine. It's ruled by Venus. It's about receptivity. It's about being able to connect and unify. So where Aries is me, Libra is we. So it's not a gender thing. It has nothing to do with that. It has more to do with the fact that all of us collectively, as this North Node goes into Aries, regardless of your gender, your identity, we are all going to be channeling more of this Aries energy, because the cosmos say, hey, we need to take a little bit more, we need to be a little bit more assertive. We need to stand up and be focusing on what we're doing on an individual level. When that happens, naturally, we start to see that it does rock the foundation of relationships, South Node in Libra. What's good for me may not be good for us, and what's good for you isn't necessarily good for me, but we have to find the balance in between. We can agree to disagree. And I think what's interesting about this is that where you're going to see this play out is quite literally going to be Pluto in Capricorn, which can be about power structures, what the government is saying, war, corruption, big business, versus Cancer. Our home, our families, the little guys, what we need, our communities, right? Our roots, our land. Equally, we're going to see lots of talk revolving around, you know, tradition and, you know, what is expected of us, and how, you know, we're really changing and transforming Pluto on a societal level, and challenging what it means to have a typical standard family where there's the mom and the dad and the kids and everybody's together and they're conservative. So you're going to hear a lot of people talking about, well, we don't have to necessarily do that. We don't have to settle. We don't have to be partnered. And you're going to hear some people go, well, it's easier to just be alone, especially because that North Node in Aries, especially in evolutionary astrology, is seen as something that's almost like nomadic, right? I mean, it's just you pick up, you go, and wherever you happen to be, that's where your home is. So as we see these squares, you're going to hear a lot of debate about gender. You're going to hear a lot of debate about tradition, about homes, about families, about parental type of things. And you're just going to see a lot of really inflamed, intense perspectives. And I think the key here, and we'll see this, you know, also with some of the Mercury squares that's happening on the 17th, is Mercury will be in a square to Jupiter, and there's going to be lots of really strong, loud, and proud beliefs and perspectives and ideas. There may be big news that comes from Mercury in Leo squaring Jupiter. It may be in relation to Mercury in Leo-related things. Just this week, I've seen some of the stuff that I've been kind of feeling was going to come up has come up. We've got the actors' strike in Hollywood. Very Mercury coming into a square with Uranus, but it's also been Mars and Venus has squared Uranus, and Uranus can actually be about unions. And so there seems to be something at odds when it comes to younger people, creatives, actors, Hollywood, and how they're being covered, what they're being paid, what their rights are. Lots of stuff coming out in Hollywood, especially in regards to the future of Hollywood and making movies, and if potentially actors are going to go along with just artificially kind of generated versions of themselves that may live on forever. And where is that potentially taking away their work? Where is that taking away their ability to choose what they participate in? Because potentially you've got situations where larger companies are manipulating and controlling art, right? Uranus and Taurus, and there's a lot of money to be made, and you've got people with Venus getting ready to go retrograde going, we are not going to get on stage. We're not going to do that because that's not really allowing us to honor our craft. More you're going to see about drama in Hollywood, all kinds of questions about what's going on really in the box offices, what movies are making money, what movies are not actually getting the recognition they should be. And it's just going to be what I've been calling all year long is a cruel summer. That's what I called my Venus retrograde webinar. If you guys haven't already seen that, you can check it out. I've waited specifically to talk more about Venus retrograde because I wanted to wait till Venus got into the later degrees. But I put out a webinar that was about 3 hours long. It's all about this particular retrograde, why it's so significant, what to expect, how it's going to affect the 12 signs, and I also include PDFs where I give you all kinds of election dates and talk about when to initiate certain things, what time is best to manifest new relationships, what time is best to also work on self-love, to heal past stuff. It's got all kinds of herbal, crystal, and magical recommendations. You guys can find that on my website. But I will be talking about Venus retrograde a little bit today, and I'm going to do a separate video where we're going to do a part 2, and we're going to look at Venus's trek as she goes retrograde. But that will be taking place later this week. So as we're in the shadow, which we've been in for a while since Venus was like at 12 degrees, we've already been feeling like, okay, there is something that's kind of brewing in regards to like trauma in relationships. So I'm anticipating this being a pretty significant day just with the squares alone. But I think the Mercury square Jupiter is just people saying what's really on their heart and putting it out there. And it can be just really big news that's kind of inflated out in the world. All right, so let's move on to Tuesday, which is a little bit of a calmer day, to be honest with you. As we're waking up on Tuesday in the morning on the 18th, the moon is now in Leo, so it's really putting the attention more so on the sun. Not that there isn't anything happening, but like really the only significant transits you're really going to see is this moon ingress. Those of you guys who are sensitive, you may start picking up the energy of Mars coming into an opposition with Saturn, but not yet. And those of you guys who are Mars ruled this week with the Mars-Saturn opposition, you're going to feel a little blocked. And those of you guys with the Venus ruled charts also are going to feel some challenges because of the Venus retrograde. And it's interesting that they're both kind of facing some challenges, and those are the new nodal rulers. So right off the bat, they have some work to do. Now, when the moon moves through Leo, you are going to see that it's going to come into a quincunx or an inconjunct with Saturn. You can feel almost like there is like a difficulty kind of relating. You know, I look at all these planets in Leo, and I know already in the next week or two, I'm going to say to quite a few people, like, you're on your own, kid. Like, go your own way. You got to do what you got to do. You got to do what makes you happy, even at the expense sometimes of having to cut losses financially with the squares to Taurus, having to also, you know, possibly disrupt or shake up relationships with a sextile to the South Node. So the moon going through Leo is really going to be touching on the sun. And thankfully now we're going to start seeing the moon grow. So we're coming out of that new moon phase, and we can start making some stuff happen. But the sun is still starting to come into an opposition with Pluto. So it's not your stereotypical, like, really loud and bright time as maybe you would see with the moon going through Leo. And it's going to be there pretty much all day. So in the evening, you're going to start to kind of pick up the moon coming into a square with Jupiter. But that's really late in the evening going into the early morning of Wednesday the 19th. And when we're waking up on Wednesday, the moon and Mercury are in conjunction to one another. Okay, so there is going to be this, how are we sharing? What are we feeling? What sounds like fun? What do we love? I like Wednesday morning for doing some creative work. I love Wednesday morning for being able to, to play, to have fun, to, create something. We're going to start coming out of the square with Jupiter, and something you will feel later in the day is you are going to start to see the moon come into a square with Uranus, which can be a little stabilizing, but the early hours seems to be a little bit easier. And that's really the only aspect that you're going to see is the moon going through Leo. So a little bit more chatty, a little bit more communicative. Obviously in the afternoon going into the evening, depending on where you are, the moon is going to square Uranus. And that does seem a little emotionally intense. The moon in Leo is just really dramatic, and it's got a flair for just wanting to sing and dance and create. And as it squares Uranus, there's going to be feeling a little bit emotionally stifled, and maybe feeling like a little, just like a little unsettled. Hard Uranus aspects with the moon does bring emotional disturbances, and it can sometimes bring frustration in the fixed signs because we're not always seeing eye to eye. Keep in mind that also, Leo isn't just about Hollywood and creatives. It's also about our love lives. It's about children. It's about the stock market. It's about taking chances and risks. And I look at all the squares taking place to Taurus, and I definitely think we're going to hear more about challenges in relationships in regards to care of children and the financial implications of that. Challenges also in regards to spending versus investing, and where some investments end up kind of going sideways, and how it can potentially be big risk, big reward. But I think a lot of people are going to find throughout this retrograde that there's going to be a lot of turbulence going on in the markets. And we've seen with all the squares to Jupiter and Uranus, lots of fluctuation with like crypto type adoption. Whether you're looking at like XRP or like Bitcoin prices or what have you, I've noticed that every single time we see a hard square to Uranus, or a moon opposed Uranus square something in Leo, there is some kind of news about where the future of cryptocurrency is going. So I do think we're going to hear more about that this week as well. Moon's going to stay in the sign of Leo into the evening. And then we are moving into Thursday, the 20th. And this is when stuff really starts to kind of heat up. So number one, first things first, we have got Mars coming into the opposition with Saturn, okay? That is going to be felt really Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And like I said, the North Node is ruled by Mars now. So Mars going through mutable earth sign of Virgo wants to be dedicated to a cause. It wants to help. It wants to assist. It wants to organize, clean, perfect something. It doesn't mind getting its hands dirty. So this is like a week where I could see a lot of people being very focused on what actions they can take in regards to work, productivity, getting things done. If you guys caught my video that I put out on this last week, I talk about like the bittersweet aspect of feeling agitated because we're not getting immediate gratification with the oppositions to Saturn. It is likely you're going to hear not good enough, not yet, it's going to take longer, or there's delays, and we're going to feel blocked because Mars just wants to move forward. And Saturn in Pisces is going to represent not such clear circumstances or not such clear reasons why we're not progressing, something kind of hazy. But if you guys keep at it, you'll start to kind of pick up in this next week, Mars coming into a trine with Jupiter, Mars coming into a trine with Uranus. So if you're feeling blocked Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, don't get discouraged, okay? Try again, pick yourself up, keep going, don't quit. Because by the time Mars gets to the late degrees of Virgo, it's going to be trining both Uranus as well as Pluto, and you're going to see the physical rewards. Now, this is happening at 6 degrees, so it is relating to health. I think it is relating also to the service industry. I do think that we're going to hear naturally with the North Node being in the sign of Aries a lot more about military mobilization, sending troops out, Army, Navy, Air Force, all that stuff. But in particular, this is going to deal more with, I think, people in like uniforms. So, I mean, obviously that's all of the armed forces, but it could also be like, police officers. It could be things relating to nurses and medics and people of that nature. And perhaps also new information coming out about the health of some of those who are in the armed forces, and new regulations or limitations revolving around that. But yeah, those of you guys who are Saturn ruled, you know, the Mars opposition is going to have you feeling like you're kind of, you know, on the defense. And those of you guys who are Mars ruled, my Aries and my Scorpio risings, the Saturn opposition is a day where likely you're going to be faced with some kind of limit or authority figure. So just keep your cool. You know, Saturn wants strict and consistent routine and boundaries and limits and rules. And Mars doesn't want to hear any of that. So this can be a day where we're needing to be more mindful of our anger or reactions. A day also where we can learn a lot by consistency and routine and not feeling like we need to have something now. It's about long-term lasting results. So whether that's working hard at a skill, you know, working hard to maintain a relationship, you know, really seeing the overall picture of like a home renovation or something where there is a series of events and processes that we have to go through before we get to the end result. So if you feel a little pushback, stay with it. I definitely think that we are going to feel this also because we will see that the moon is going to come into conjunction with Venus, which is nice. I like that. It's emotional, it's sensitive. It can be great for romance and relationships, but we're also starting to pick up the energy of the Venus retrograde, which will be happening a couple days later. And Venus will be actually retrograding conjunct Regulus. So there's going to be a lot of drama. We're definitely going to see lots going on with rulers and prime ministers and kings and like wealthy people and people who are in high society because Venus will be retrograding in that particular degree. But I like this for, you know, opportunity for romance and connection. I do like the trine to the North Node. You know, Venus really is the star all summer, not just because of her retrograde, but the trines to the North Node where we realize that we have to stop seeking fulfillment in other people. You know, the attention-seeking behaviors, the feeling like we need to have love and not really getting in touch with our true inner essence and like focusing on loving and expressing ourselves better and feeling like we're becoming whole before we're joining another person. I think Venus trine the North Node throughout this retrograde is about that. I think the in conjunct to Neptune represents a sense of having like a blind spot and where we're not taking time to pause and reflect and be more cautious of our behavior and how we treat other people could actually lead to there being more misunderstandings. And also the in conjunct to Pluto, which does represent something where there is energy out in the skies or out in the world that is wanting to almost squash or remove or control what we love. Happiness, right? Also, the sun, Leo is the sun. So you're going to hear a lot more about this initiative to block out the sun and where that may potentially be said that, you know, there's a need to do that for environmental reasons. But what about the impact that that's going to have on big animals, right? Leo and Taurus. What about the impact that's going to have on children and younger people and plants and all of these other things? I think you're going to hear a lot more about that as well. And then finally, later in the morning, the moon is going to cross Venus and ingress into Virgo. And so what you're going to notice is right around the time that the Mars-Saturn opposition is perfecting, which is going to be closer to right around like 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, then comes the moon. And the moon is the activator. So I'm looking at now Thursday night where the moon and Mars are coming together in opposing Saturn, and we're hearing, oh, there's some limitation, we have to, you know, limit this, or you have to take another way home, or, you know, there's some inconvenience that kind of pops up with moon Mars that is a limit. It could be some extreme weather. That's something else that could happen here, especially because we are seeing, you know, Mercury Uranus coming into a square. Because Mercury rules Virgo. So we're starting to see where there's like some hang-ups. I definitely think that I would be mindful of like flare-ups, rushing, anything like that on Thursday morning going into Thursday evening going into Friday morning. And anticipate that with that opposition that we have with Saturn, it can bleed into the 21st on Friday. Like there's going to be discipline issues, limits, dealing with anger, feeling frustrated. On the flip side, we're experiencing a Sun trine Neptune. So we're going to hear a lot of like How do we feel about loss or letting something go? You know, what is that hunch that I'm getting? What is my inner, you know, higher self kind of telling me? So it's a day where you have to really listen to your intuition, listen to your instincts, especially if something feels off, right? Pluto in conjunct, you know, Venus, you know, definitely tells me that there can be some darker energies out there right now. I don't like talking about it, but Pluto square the nodes, Pluto and Venus quincunx each other, where Pluto is almost overshadowing and wanting to dictate or control what we can do to have fun, or what we know when it comes to younger people, or, you know, creatives, or the industry, or children. You guys are going to see where there is a distinct agenda to limit or control some kind of information from kind of breaking out this week, I assume, which may inevitably break anyway when Mercury comes into a square with Uranus. All right, so then on the 21st, we're going to see, this is when the sun hits 29 degrees. So once again, we're going to see something similar to right after that new moon that we had on the 17th, where the moon hit 29. Now we've got the sun hitting 29. So setting up again, that 17th through the 22nd, or, you know, 23rd, this is a very intense week. This is where there are some really significant karmic things at play. The sun does represent solar figures, powerful figures, men. It can be about creativity, celebrities, something in regards to, you know, people becoming aware of some scandal. It can be a sex scandal, Pluto. It can be some kind of crime. It can be something where people are becoming outraged and angry and expecting somebody to step down. Because Pluto square the nodes is going to be exposing corruption and crime and evil deeds at an all-time high. This is just the awareness that's starting to kind of come through. And with the moon also coming into a trine with Jupiter, it is going to be about wanting to get to the bottom of things and wanting to figure out the details. I wonder if it's going to be also about something relating to accidents, drugs, alcohol, somebody famous or somebody well-known that gets into an accident, and there was either some issue relating to substances or like transportation that's involved. Obviously, touch wood, but you know, that may be something that we see. Or some really significant person within like politics, or like who serves in like the forces may also transition, or maybe even step down. So I'm curious to see what that is with that opposition as well. So this will be the last day of having the sun in Cancer before it ingresses into Leo. All day we're feeling that pressure of that square, where we really want to look at where is Aries, Cancer, you know, Libra and Capricorn in our chart. The cardinal signs represent the signs that initiate the seasons, right? And so this is how I explain it to people. When spring shows up, it doesn't just ask, right? It's just the snow melts, the birds come out, everything's alive, things start kind of getting warmer. When we move into the summertime and Cancer season, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, things heat up, it gets hot, and we start noticing that, you know, there is this intensity, right? And the days are definitely, you know, growing in time. And we're starting to notice the difference of the days and the nights as we're getting to the second half of the year. So the cardinal signs, they initiate things, they just start things. So likely what we're going to see is off of the heels of that new moon that we had in Cancer, it's kicking off basically being like, hey, we're going to create pressure in 4 areas of your life. No big deal. Just here's this thing that's coming and it's affecting everything else. So believe it or not, the intentions you're setting with that new moon in Cancer may feel like it's like do or die. Like it's like, this thing has to change. I have to get rid of this thing. I have to, you know, initiate that. I have to overcome this. Really do the work today into tomorrow for making decisions about what goals you're setting, what intentions you're setting. But it needs to start with that emotional shift first. That's likely going to start to kind of carry you through, especially as you get to this particular cardinal cross. And even if you don't have any planets in cardinal signs, when planets square the nodes, nobody gets a pass. So we might actually start to see where there's like something that's going on that's inhibiting or hindering us from being able to focus on having security, having home security, having homeland security, safety when it comes to our families and our health and our happiness and our emotional well-being. So the moon is going to keep moving through Virgo. Obviously, it's going to start going into the 22nd on Saturday, picking up into a trine with Uranus, which we're going to see in the morning. So that's about emotionally bouncing back, recovering a little bit, being able to kind of say, okay, this thing happened, you know, now we're going to make a change. Mars is coming out of an opposition with Saturn, which is nice. And the moon is going to keep moving through Virgo. And then what we're going to see is later in the day, we are going to experience in the evening, Venus will start her retrograde in the sign of Leo at 28 degrees in conjunction with Lilith. So there is going to be some drama. There is definitely going to be a lot of raw kind of emotions and hearts and maybe conflict and sexual things that are coming up over the summer with that conjunction with Lilith. Lilith generally needs to have another planet aspect in order for it to kind of do its thing. And so I talk in my webinar about how Lilith going back and forth during the Venus retrograde in conjunction with Venus is significant because it's going to represent temptation. It's going to represent abuse. It's going to represent drama. And then we're also going to see Juno come into the mix. So I do think we're going to see lots of drama in relationships, some pretty significant scandals, I think, in Hollywood, and some threes of crowd scenarios. But this is where the Venus retrograde is going to begin. And it's also going to be while the sun is moving into Leo. So throughout the Venus retrograde, we're going to constantly be looking at the sun because the sun is what rules Leo. So obviously any aspects between the sun and Venus is going to be important, eventually leading to what will be a new Venus Cazimi point when it conjuncts at 20 degrees. But for right now, I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about the Venus retrograde. Let me just complete and talk to you guys about Sunday, and then I'll give you my spiel on Venus retrograde. But Saturday, Sun enters Leo. To those of you guys who are having your birthday this week, who are Cancers or early Leos, happy birthday to you guys. The sun is moving into its home sign, so it's most comfortable there. And we are going to also see on the 23rd that the moon is going to ingress into Libra. So next Sunday you're waking up, moon's in Libra, sun's in Leo. We're relating, but Venus rules the moon. Venus will be going retrograde. So it's like, wait a second, what are we doing in relationships? What's going on? We're now still responding and maybe recovering from the Sun-Pluto opposition. And you're going to at least see the sextile here. But I think it's really bringing up the energy of Venus retrograde. We're really feeling that pretty strongly. And then all the way through the day, we're going to see the moon continue to keep moving through Libra. And it's not really doing much other than that. It'll start to kind of pick up a sextile, but that's not really going to be until next Monday. So that's pretty much it. Know that Mercury and Uranus are also going to be squaring on Sunday. So there is a sense of mental restlessness, challenges in communicating, issues with electronics, some kind of communication breakdown, and it's at a 22. So it is all going to be funneling back to what's going on politically, what's going on with leaders, what's going on with government, especially in regards to trade transactions, investments, banking, and the stock market. So we are going to hear a lot about that. I'm curious to see what happens if there's going to be more insight in regards to inside trading, if there's some really unusual patterns going on in the markets, and if we're starting to see some very significant sell-offs because people might know that something is potentially coming, and more about some of this like crypto madness. So that's going to be taking place as well. All right, so let me take you guys now and talk a little bit about the Venus retrograde because it is such a significant topic. It's going to be taking place for quite some time. So Venus is going to be going retrograde in the sign of Leo. If you guys didn't already catch my Venus through Leo video part 1, go check that out. It's already on my channel. I take you guys all the way up till this week, and I talk about some of the really unique aspects that Venus is going to be making. The last time that Venus went retrograde in the sign of Leo was in 2015, the summer of 2015 and the summer of 2007. You can go back every 8 years or so. We've seen the retrogrades kind of start in Virgo, but then it retrogrades back into Leo. But this particular retrograde will be totally in Leo. It'll go retrograde from 28 degrees through 12 degrees of Leo. So 4 months, right? We're having 4 months of Venus in Leo. So that'll be from June all the way through October, although the Venus retrograde will physically be taking place from July 22nd at 28 degrees of Leo up until September 3rd when it goes direct at 12. So if you have any personal planets, sun, moon, rising, Venus, a node, within 12 to 28 degrees of Leo, you're going to be affected by the Venus retrograde. Venus is going to go retrograde several times over these degrees, which means it's going through a process. Now we know Venus rules, obviously, love, money, relationships, but also it has connections to our pleasure. It has connections to our values. It's about our social habits. It's about design, cosmetic preferences, our tastes, and much more. And those of you guys that it's going to be affecting the most outside of Leo, sun, moon, and rising is also going to be Taurus and Libra rising, because you are ruled by Venus. So this means that you may feel the effect of Venus retrograde much more strongly because that's your chart ruler. Equally, those of you guys who are the fixed signs, so not just Taurus, but also Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, especially if you have your rising sign between 12 and 28 degrees, you are going to be feeling Venus going retrograde, creating some squares. Big stuff. I mean, this is pretty significant energy, especially considering right off the bat when the nodes change, Mars and Saturn square off, so there's going to be limits in regards to really initiating that North Node in Aries. And then we have the South Node ruler go retrograde. So there is lots of drama that's going to be going on all summer long. The aspects are quite significant in my opinion, outside of the fact that the South Node is in Libra and it's ruled by Venus. Venus is going to make a sextile several times to the South Node. Okay, so that can represent going through some sense of self-awareness, integrating more self-love, raising our standards, and reaching for the love that we deserve so we can finally clear imbalances in partnerships or relationships, romantic or platonic. Okay, the 7th house or Libra energy can be cutting off counselors, changing astrologers, making changes also with clients, and how other people may perceive you. And we're also going to see, like I said, throughout this transit, Venus will also trine the North Node in Aries. So we're getting in touch with what we need, taking actions to focus on what makes us happy and being more creative and better self-expressive. We will see several aspects that we have already seen since June. So if you guys go back and look at some of the videos that I did the last month or two, I talk about how Venus was in a square to Jupiter, which made us spend, eat, or love excessively. There was like a tendency to overindulge because Jupiter in Taurus is about money, resources, and pleasure. And Venus in Leo is very romantic, and it's also about taking chances and taking risks. So a lot of people are, oh, if I do this, I'm gonna get that. You know, if I invest this, I could triple it. Or if I buy them the really nice piece of jewelry, you know, maybe I will win them over, or I'll impress them with an expensive date or a gift. Anyway, so there's been a lot of like overdoing it, basically. And as Venus goes retrograde, we're going to see Venus square off with Jupiter as well as Uranus 2 more times. So we're seeing this back and forth that's been going on where how much is too much and how does that start to affect our relationships? And do we need to be spending to have fun? Do we need to be doing something excessively just to prove a point? And where are we doing this because we're seeking attention or we're seeking validation outside of ourselves? Now, obviously, Venus will also square off with Uranus, and that is going to represent lots of changes in resources. Taurus represents our banks and our personal resources. And one thing that people, I don't think, realize about a Venus retrograde is it's not even just so much about relationships. It's going to be what control do you have over your resources? Be very careful with exchanges, you know, leaving money on exchanges, especially with cryptocurrencies. You want to make sure that you guys physically possess it. That's Taurus. I do have a feeling that we are going to see some pretty wild fluctuations also with the price of gold throughout this summer as Venus and Uranus square and Venus and Jupiter square. And I'm curious to see what happens with some of these announcements with the BRICS countries in regards to a potential future-backed gold currency. And future currency backed by gold, excuse me. So potentially a digital currency that will or should, in theory, maintain its value. Now, if that ends up being the case, how is that going to impact the price of gold, right? Likely it could go up. I don't know, I'm not a financial advisor, but Leo is gold and Venus is what is considered to be like precious. So when we go through a Venus retrograde, we're re-evaluating. Do I love this? Do I value this? Does it deserve to have more value? Do we give it back? Do we get rid of it? So it's not unusual during retrogrades that there is a re-evaluation of physical possessions or relationships. In this case, in the fifth houses, I think when it comes to trading and people are going to be kind of betting against both sides to see which way it's going to ultimately fall. And there's potentially going to be a lot of disruptions with that square to Uranus. And, I want everybody to know that this is a process. A lot of people hear retrograde and they freak out. And I would say, to be honest with you, Venus is making so many damn aspects to outer planets between Uranus, Jupiter, Pluto, and Neptune that clearly this retrograde is necessary to get everybody on board and become aware and cause almost a scene about the potential future of where money is going and what control you have over it and how that could potentially limit or impact your ability to spend money the way that you want, where you want, how you want, and start kind of educating yourselves about what's actually going on in the world with the future of resources and potentially CBDCs. Down the road, right, when we get into October, Venus will be moving into Virgo. And when Venus moves into Virgo, a mercurial sign, she does not respond as well. And she will immediately be met with an opposition to Saturn. So this is going to be the beginning of October. When that happens, and we have the South Node in Libra and Venus sextiling and then opposing Saturn, that may be that defining moment where many people will go back and forth and be wrestling with, do I leave this relationship? Do I stay? Am I in love with this person? Am I not? Is this working? Is it not? Do I decide to kind of participate in something new that's going to bring me more happiness? Do I take a chance in this investment? And then we're all going to be met with a harsh reality when Venus and Saturn oppose. That's like, this is no longer working. Actually, it's been kind of falsely propped up. And then we start to see, a real economic decline. So be mindful that some of the drama that comes up through the Venus retrograde is probably a good thing because it needs to kind of air all of this stuff out to really see what we truly love. And it's going to be different for each individual person. I mean, I can give you guys so much information about the whole rising sign, but you need to really look at other aspects that Venus is making in your chart. Is it potentially trining, nodes or Jupiter or your natal Venus? Perhaps it's going to be easier for you. But if it's squaring things, conjunct Pluto, if it's opposing Saturn, obviously it's going to come with a little bit more of like an obstacle course in terms of figuring out what you truly want, need, or value. I would encourage everybody to be hyper realistic. I think that that's really important because squares to Jupiter, things can be inflated. Squares to Uranus, things can be artificial or superficial. Obviously, you're going to hear a lot of, astrologers say, don't cut your hair, don't get cosmetic surgery, don't do this and don't do that. Because Venus is about beauty and aesthetics. Now that might be more true for, my Leo and Taurus and Libra risings. But other placements as well may also not fare well. When I think of Venus square Jupiter, it's too big, too fast. Whether it's implants or it's gaining weight or it's fame, maybe it's investments. And then the squares that we see to Uranus is the turbulence and the actual effects that has on the relationship on the back end. Once you've made decisions that are more heart-based and more self-focused, how are other people going to respond to that? And is it actually going to bring you happiness to have more? So that's going to be a theme that what we're going to continue to see. And I would just say, keep in mind that October is really going to be that time where you're going to determine whether or not you're going to stay or you're going to kind of cut your losses. Now, I guess the pros is that we're going to have Venus in a sign for 4 months. So Venus is one of the benefics. So being in the sign of Leo, you have to look at what house that's in. It's going to give you a little extra love opportunity in this particular house. It's going to allow you to reflect on past relationships and reconnect if need be. or it may be giving you the opportunity to heal, release, and let something go. It can also allow us to focus on love-centered relationships and bringing romance back. Retrogrades can be about reversals. So this is why people say, maybe don't get married during a Venus retrograde. Don't buy that expensive watch. Be careful buying that sculpture or that piece of art because it may not be what you like in the long run. So yes, take into consideration if you're spending anything excessively, especially on art, entertainment, creativity, bedding, relationships, you might actually change your mind, and you might be beneficial just to kind of hold off and wait and see where the chips fall as we get to the end of summer. For many of us, I do think that it's allowing ourselves to find closure. And so if you've been struggling with wanting to overcome a breakup or a separation, if it's been kind of hanging heavy over you for some time, you can actually start to break free from that and actually detach and let go of that relationship. You might find that you're cleaning out your closet, getting rid of things that that person gave you, or maybe you're more inclined to finally kind of get in touch with your body and stop allowing that blockage to affect your relationship with yourself and your self-esteem. Getting in touch with your inner child, artist, and romantic is also a huge theme because that's what Leo is all about, and it wants to create and share and dance and be on stage and be the center of attention. So with Venus being in the sign, many people may go back to old hobbies or things that they loved in childhood. They might be more reminiscent about this stuff, and it might allow you to kind of like find a way to better express yourself and have some fun at the same time. Likely there will be very strong desires for authentic self-expression because that's what Leo wants. And that will play, into helping you manifest whatever it is that you're hoping to create. So if it is the ideal relationship, if it is potentially starting a family or becoming a successful entrepreneur, or possibly even, just like getting in touch with your inner child, this desire for being authentic is the key. So with the retrograde being an extended period, you want to take your time when it comes to these things, knowing that within about 4 months, we're going to see something that's going to be beneficial from this kind of clearing. Now the cons, right, is that Venus retrograde, like any retrograde, can bring reversals. We're much more affected by retrogrades with the inner planets. So Mercury, Mars, Venus, we feel these much more strongly because there's shorter periods of retrogrades and it's also closer to Earth. So all of us mortals are kind of getting hit with that. And while Venus is retrograde, the goddess is not essentially thrilled. She's going through the process of disappearing, going to the underworld and coming back. So she's being born again in a different form where she's going to be more action-oriented and a little bit more like assertive. So I do think that this being in a solar sign, it's definitely going to bring some drama. I think the South Node in Libra would bring, some breakups and separations anyway, but a Venus retrograde in squares to Uranus, yes, some people are going to feel restless. They're going to want some changes in their relationships, so they want to change up their routine. It is likely that we're going to hear from past lovers or romantic connections, high school sweethearts. That all comes under the guise of Leo. And for many of us, it's also sorting out karmic relationships. I've heard a lot of people talk about being in fear of these, retrogrades and, what are we going to do? What's going to happen? But to be honest with you, I've seen a lot of like good clearing out happen in retrogrades, especially Venus retrogrades, or retrogrades in the 5th house, retrogrades in the 7th house, which ultimately clears the path to bring the right relationship in or to bring healing to an existing relationship. So if you guys can sort out your karmic stuff, it can be really beneficial and it can really help you, start to move on and also better invest in yourself and establish healthier self-esteem rather than like the trauma drama of like fighting back and forth and having this cruel summer with a relationship that, no party wants to like budge or give when it comes to making changes. Now we can see there can be reversals in love, but also in creative projects. So be mindful that there is a process of things going back and forth, and it may seem like things are not going linearly. They're going sideways and 1 step forward and 3 steps back, and then there's delays and you're waiting to get paid and you're waiting to kind of get an answer from someone and you're waiting to, it's slow. Venus is retrograde, so she's going to slow all this stuff down. We do need to be mindful that there is potentially going to be more ego issues, like I said, and seeking validation from other people, and really focusing on giving ourselves what it is we've been seeking in other people and learning to really get in touch with what we need and activate that North Node in Aries, which is getting on the path of giving ourselves what we want. rather than kicking and screaming and arguing with people and trying to cause a scene, which obviously some people may potentially do. So be mindful that that is going to be in the skies this week. If you guys want to know more about this, definitely check out my Venus and Leo video. I take you all the way up into this point and I touch on a lot of this stuff, but also consider taking my webinar because it'll give you lots of insight and it'll talk about the fixed stars, Juno, Lilith, and all of the oppositions and squares along with all of the dates. And I'll do a part 2 video later this week. But as a reminder, let me just take you through the 12 signs. Let me pull a tarot card and show you guys where this is taking place for you. I also talk about this in my July horoscopes. I give you guys a little bit of something because I know a lot of people are going to be like, what's happening? What is going on? Are you going to see something off the bat? I don't know. I mean, I personally feel like you're going to see probably the most drama when there's squares to Uranus. All right, so this is going to be for Western whole sign. I'm going to talk to you guys about the 12 rising signs where Venus is retrograding, just a hot take on what to be aware of and what you may expect. We're going to start with Aries and Aries rising. Those of you guys who are into Placidus, please, you can listen to wherever 28 to 12 degrees of Leo is in your chart. And yes, you can listen to your whole sign as well. I recommend listening to your ascendant first, followed by your sun and your moon sign. Okay, so for my Aries and Aries rising, you're going to have Venus that will be turning retrograde in your natal 5th house, which deals with creativity, lovers, romance, self-employment, taking chances, having fun, okay? So you're going to find that there's 4 months of that being the focus in your chart. Now, Venus rules relationships, your 7th house, and possessions, your 2nd house. So as Venus goes retrograde in the 5th, you are reevaluating, what do I love? Who do I love? What do I value? What do I need? Do I want something casual? Am I wanting something just for the summer? Or is there something going on where I'm really wanting to reconnect and rekindle or maybe connect to somebody from the past? Be cautious and careful, obviously, with taking chances, investments, betting, all of that stuff. And there can be reconnecting to your own inner joy and personal happiness. And I think that's going to be a huge focus. And I'm really liking the trines to the North Node because I feel like it's like finding your own bliss, right? Can exes come back? Yes. Can there be a bit of a back and forth in regards to what makes you happy? Yes. Try returning back to an old hobby or something that you used to love doing when you were younger. And it might even be something that's like a little bit more fitness oriented or, you know, being on stage or, you know, a crafting type of hobby. And that may actually bring you a little bit more pleasure, and it might be something you potentially do with a partner. However, the tarot seems to not be too positive. Ten of Swords does talk about a completion. It does talk about like possibly going through a heartbreaking situation or releasing or letting something go. Yeah, Venus rules your 7th house. So some of you guys might be reliving, you know, issues relating to past relationship hurt or haunts. But there can also be a sense of finally putting an end to it and putting yourself first. Keep in mind in the fall, you're going to see eclipses in your 7th house. So for some of you guys, this may be just starting. But for others, there is I'm, you know, finally letting it go for once and for all. And not allowing some of these old pains in relationships and partnerships to hold you back. Good luck, Aries. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. Taurus, you are ruled by Venus, so you are more easily affected by this, okay? So I'm going to tell you the same thing I'm going to say for Leo as well as Libra. No significant cosmetic changes, okay? If you want to do something temporary, that's fine. Permanent physical changes, cosmetic surgery, you know, crazy hairdos, tattoos, anything in regards to big style changes, that's where you want to be more careful, okay? And Venus isn't going to get into a better position really until right around the 8th of November when it moves into Libra. So for everybody listening, I would say if you're going to do anything big like that, let's wait till the fall when Venus is in better position. Okay, Taurus, so Venus rules your 1st house of the self, appearance, and body, and also your 6th house, which deals with health, wellness, and routine. And you've got Venus going retrograde in your 4th. So you are Venus. Venus going retrograde in the 4th might indicate that you're reevaluating, maybe kind of changing direction with your home life, where you want to live, how you want to live. A woman can be moving in or out of your house. There can be family that's coming to visit you. Things of that nature can kind of go on. Be very careful with like buying homes, building homes, redesigning homes. There may be some things that go kind of wonky there, and there could be delays with that stuff. Because Venus connects to your 6th house of health and also health and assistance. So trainers, doctors, employees, co-workers. I would be mindful that if you're looking to bring somebody in to design or maintain a home or take care of your lawn or fix something, you may not be totally pleased with the results. That includes like hiring people to kind of help you find a home. You may not be pleased with the results. Be careful with who you bring in to do that stuff. And keep in mind that this can be a wonderful time to clear up some misunderstandings or issues with family or relatives and kind of mend things. And it might be a time where there is more focus with you just kind of getting your home kind of organized or getting something kind of set up, okay? And yeah, those squares to the planets in your 1st house is definitely going to have you responding to some of the changes going on at home and with the family. The card that you get is the King of Cups, which means that you're going to be wearing your heart on your sleeve. You're going to be much more emotionally sensitive, aware, but capable of handling whatever comes your way. And likely it's going to be about letting your intuition and your emotions kind of lead the way. If you have any relatives or other people in your life that may be a water sign, so a Cancer, Scorpio, or a Pisces, pay attention because these can be people who are also involved in what's going on. Planets in the 4th house can oftentimes indicate something going on also with a parent or some kind of change that's happening with your family. Good luck. For Gemini rising, you are going to be having Venus go retrograde in your natal 3rd house in the sign of Leo. And Venus is connected to your 12th house, which is more subconscious and hidden. And it also has connections to your 5th house, which is going to be more about creativity, self-expression, lovers, and children. Well, a Venus retrograde in the 3rd house can definitely bring a reevaluation of how you communicate, what you're learning. There can be reconnections with siblings, particularly female relatives, or returning to old neighborhoods and connecting with friends or other people there. You might consider changing something in regards to education for a child, and there can be a sense of going back and forth with an issue or making a change with a vehicle. I would not recommend for my Gemini risings to be moving or buying vehicles under these transits. You want to wait until after Venus and Mercury are direct because there could potentially be some things that you don't necessarily see. Contracts need to be thoroughly analyzed as well, especially considering the fact that Venus rules the 12th house and you want to make sure that everything is cut and dry and very clear when it comes to finances. This is a wonderful time for those of you guys who are interested in blogging, podcasting, journaling to get back into that, but not necessarily launch anything. If you're wanting to launch these things or websites, you want to be working on it on the summer, and then you want to be launching it when the retrograde is actually going to be over later in the fall. I would also say that this can be about reevaluating how you communicate and how you talk to children or romantic partners. Be mindful of travel and transportation. There can be some things that slow down, inhibiting you from being able to actually travel. And there can be some like changes that can be going on that are out of the blue that may kind of mess with some of your travel plans. The card that I get for you is the Strength card, which I like because this has connections obviously to Leo. But this can be about inner strength, strength being how you communicate, strength being how you connect with other people, what you're learning about this process, also about releasing and letting things go. And that loss can actually spur some kind of creativity. And you're going to see like a stronger side of yourself that will come through with this transit. Good luck. We have got Cancer and Cancer rising. You will be experiencing Venus retrograde in your natal 2nd house. This is going to be in relation to your money, your resources, your self-esteem, your values, your possessions. And Venus rules your 11th house of goals, friends, and associations, and your 4th house of home and family. All right, so Cancer rising. You guys want to be particularly careful with your spending habits. Any big purchases and things really should kind of be put off a little bit until later in the fall. The 2nd house can be about what you possess, and the fact that Venus rules the 4th. Buying houses, buying furniture, things for homes, investing in homes can have like a slowed or a delayed effect, and there can be something that is kind of hung up or unclear about the actual purchase. There can be a sense of really needing to reevaluate, what do I value, what do I want, what can I spend, what do I want to spend on, and you're going to find that you may feel like resources slow down a little bit, okay? And with Venus being the ruler of your 11th house, it might be that you're changing directions with how you're going about making money. There may be some kind of change going on also with like your goals pertaining to how you make money, or certain friendships are kind of shifting and opening things up and making it possible for you to kind of align with other connections that might expand your ability to get new jobs, bring in more resources. I think for you, even in spite of the Venus retrograde, the fact that Venus is going retrograde in the 2nd house and it's going to trine the North Node tells me that this is kind of the summer where you realize like what your worth is, and that you can't settle for less, and that you have to expect more, and that there is a sense of you really looking at your budget and your resources being like, maybe I'm not getting paid enough where I'm at and I deserve more. Maybe I'm going to go and find it. And so your goals really are what are pressuring you or pushing you to kind of really level up and start focusing on being able to believe in yourself, because you're only going to be paid as much as you're worth. If you're making any large purchases, save the receipts, save the tags, because you may thank me for this in about a month or two when you have to return something that you realize you couldn't afford. All right. We've got the Ace of Swords, which is interesting because this is about like contracts and stating your case and talking about how you feel. And, you know, I do think that's a theme. I mean, you've got the North Node in your 10th house. There's lots of opportunity for being seen, for being heard, and for being able to better direct your energy in a way where people really take you seriously. I know that the transits this week are going to be rather intense. I would say with that new moon, it's got to all be about you. And if you're making new commitments and new changes, yeah, other people may not like that. But you're stepping into a much more kind of assertive period where you're focusing on being in the driver's seat of your own life. So it's all about how you kind of communicate and express that energy to people so you can really get the ball rolling. Good luck. My Leo and Leo risings, obviously I'm going to give you the same spiel. Cosmetic stuff, right? Please be careful. I don't want to see any of you guys doing anything crazy, like chopping all your hair off or trying to bleach it all in one session. You may find that any cosmetic changes that you make, you may not be thrilled with. It may take longer for you to heal also. So some of you guys might see throughout the Venus retrograde, you're focusing on healing something. There can be issues pertaining to healing stuff revolving around lower back, arms and shoulders that can come up here, or hands, fingers. There can also be a sense of you just really taking this opportunity while Venus is retrograde in your 1st house to reevaluate, what do I love? What do I want? How can I better love myself? How can I better express myself? How do I want to be seen? With that retrograde, likely you may buy some crazy patterns or clothes, or decide to go into a direction or relationship, or make some personal changes that you might kind of flip-flop and change your mind on. Go and look back at 2015 and 2007 as like to give you an idea of what may have changed. Now, Venus rules your career zone, and it also rules your 3rd house of communication. So what's nice is that throughout the Venus retrograde, you're going to see lots of sextiles to the South Node, which means you can start kind of going, maybe I don't understand, maybe I don't know, maybe I don't agree, but I'm going to go and like learn, or I'm going to go and find out for myself. You're less consumed and focused with just trying to get along with everybody and being a pushover, and you're more consumed with traveling, learning, educating yourself, what you believe in. There can be a sense of you feeling like you're more consumed with traveling further away versus like locally. But I like that it sextiles the South Node, and it's going to give you a different perspective. And it's also going to allow you to learn more about other people or other places around the world, and really kind of develop, probably like a much fuller kind of perspective about the world. I do think that what's challenging is just the sheer number of squares between your first house and your 10th house. And so there is this sense of wanting to stand out, wanting to be seen, wanting to be fabulous. And this me energy that's kind of coming into friction with career and reputation and what you're meant to be doing out in the world. So that this is a little restless, and it makes me feel like you're wanting to break free and express yourself a little bit more. So take your time doing that. Those of you guys who are working hard to really refine your look or anything, you can do that. It's just going to take time, and you may not really start to see the results until closer to really, the fall of this year. I think with a retrograde in your first, and also Pluto retrograde with a square to the nodes in the 6th, is finally combating patterns and habits that inhibit you from really taking good care of yourself. So that may be something that's coming up throughout this retrograde for you. The card that I get is the World card, which is a great card. This is about cycles completing, and this is about like bringing everything back to you and being like, okay, if I'm not thrilled with what's going on work-wise or relationship-wise or home-wise, like what can I change? What am I completing? And like completing like some kind of personal karma within yourself. So it's not so much about other people. It might be about your relationship to other people, but it's more about being able to finally kind of wrap things up and learn lessons that pertain to you personally. Good luck. For Virgo and Virgo rising, you will be experiencing Venus going retrograde in your natal 12th house, which is hidden, spiritual, karmic. It's about unresolved issues. It's about talent and hidden spaces and foreign lands. Venus has connections to your 9th house of foreign travel, belief, and philosophy, and your 2nd house of money, possessions, and resources. Well, I think with Venus going retrograde in the late degrees of the 12th house, which can be about self-undoing, you want to be really mindful of where you're just like excessively spending or excessively putting money on credit, or you are hiding away from the world and hiding away from dealing with relationship problems, where some relationship hangups have created some self-esteem issues because of the connection to Libra and the South Node in your 2nd. I also feel like between that and eventually a Mercury retrograde that's going to take place, in September in your 1st house, to me it seems like there is maybe a bit of a back and forth that's going on in a relationship, and you're seeking alone time, seeking private time. Some of you guys can be having private kind of like affairs with people. Some of you guys might be having this opportunity to really reflect on whether or not you move forward in a relationship, and maybe just feeling like you need a lot of alone time. So traveling can be good, meditating can be good, spiritual studies can be good, therapy, meeting with hypnotherapists, past life regressionists, or just being able to be in a private place where you feel like you can kind of create and you can decompress can be really helpful. As a reminder, in October, Venus will go into your sign and oppose Saturn. So there can be a sense of you like realizing like after a back and forth that you're doing all summer long, eventually there can be like a separation or kind of taking a break. This can be from a romantic partner, a spouse. This can also be from like a creative collaboration or even like a younger person in your life. And maybe it's coming, and maybe you're like reevaluating whether or not you're going to kind of pull the trigger and finally kind of end something. It's hard to say, but I think that the positive of this is that it's going to allow you to go deeper into opportunities for travel, studying, or your spiritual beliefs. And I would find ways to be able to go and connect with Venus in a creative way that you might be doing privately while you're having that kind of time with all these planets that are moving through your 12th house. There can be some secret admirers and also some dreams relating to relationships that can come up here. Interesting that you get the 2 of Cups, so that can be meeting, which I do think is possible. You're going to see this more next week, but as Venus retrogrades, it's going to come into conjunction with Mercury. So it means that you might have like a secret admirer come forward, or somebody from the past pops up. Somebody's reconnecting with you from a distance, and it's giving you the opportunity to kind of have the secret meeting. It can be with a foreigner, and it can be an opportunity for establishing a new relationship, but I do feel like there's a sense of you being cautious and really feeling this out, even if there is an offer, and maybe reevaluating whether or not you're capable of doing it or willing to do this at a distance. Good luck. We've got Libra and Libra rising. Obviously Libra, Venus rules your chart, so please be mindful of the cosmetic relations to this Venus retrograde. Major changes to your appearance, cosmetic stuff, permanent things, hairstyle, clothing. Take it easy with that. Don't do anything excessive or crazy because Venus does rule your physical body and your appearance. Venus also has connections to your 8th house and anything in regards to joint resources, changes, and things that are going to be more about your psychological life, your intimacy, taxes, inheritances, that kind of stuff. Now, Venus will be retrograding in your 11th house, which is going to be more relating to your goals, your friends. It can be about your participation with groups of people. It can also be about reevaluating who you want to reconnect to, who you want to be friends with. If you've been feeling like you haven't been socializing as much, you might be finding that you're trying to spend more time connecting with others. There can also be a sense of reevaluating how you want to make money because the 11th house is second from the 10th. So there can be a sense of going back and forth and putting in more work and more effort, even if it's with groups of people, to try to generate more income. Now, the kicker here, I think, is that there's pros and cons. Obviously, Leo sextiles your sign, and you've got the South Node going through your sign. So it's kind of selfless. It's kind of like less about you, and it's tapping into this whole, okay, there's more potential if I'm collaborating with a group of people or I'm joining a network. And at the same time, I'm also seeing that all of this placement in Leo is trining the North Node in your 7th house. So Libra, definitely a time for relationships, definitely time for socializing. However, you may go back and forth with certain friends and realize that certain friends are not your people. Equally, if you've had falling outs with friendships or relationships in recent years, you may be able to reconnect or rekindle. And if you're hoping to reconnect with somebody or like the one who got away, that can happen also with Venus retrograde in your 11th. The more you're socializing, the more you're likely to kind of connect with others. Be mindful of like creative collaborations and also the financial implications. You know, is it better to work on your own or is it better to work with other people? And is there potential for you to bring in more? Or is there some stickiness in regards to joint resources and what you're getting versus what other people are getting? And is it fair? That's really the question. I would really look to when you're starting to see aspects that sextiling your South Node transits, because it's encouraging you to kind of let go of an old version of you, be embracing, socializing, partnering with other people, and like letting other people see what you have to offer and like celebrate you. But I could definitely see there being some drama and some friendships here, especially when you see some squares to Uranus. You may have some real deep emotional responses to changes that's going on with your social life, and some endings of friendships can feel like grief or loss, especially as Venus is in conjunct Pluto. Some of you guys might be going through some really heavy home, private, emotional related things, and as you're going through that, it may be beneficial to have support from your friends. The card that I got for you is the Nine of Coins, which is interesting because it may talk about this back and forth that you're doing and then finally deciding to go your own way. This is about resources. This is about abundance. This is about indulging. There may be a sense of you going, you know what? I've been working really hard. Now I'm going to go and have some playtime. I've earned it. I deserve it. I'm going to give that to myself. I'm going to treat myself. And so that can come as a result of, you know, having more resources because you're collaborating with other companies or other brands or other people. And because you're receiving that support, it may prompt you to go, I'm going to do something nice for myself. Good luck. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, you will be having Venus going retrograde in your natal 10th house in the sign of Leo. So obviously this is a little bit more action-packed for you and also the fixed signs. The 10th house does deal with your career, your status in the world, your reputation, okay? This is a very public place, Scorpio, so the retrograde that you're going to go through here is definitely going to be very visible. Now, Venus rules your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, clients, spouses, all of that stuff. And it also rules your 12th house of what is hidden and subconscious. So for Venus to go retrograde in the 10th house may represent a time where you have a partner, or you have a spouse, or you have a relationship of some kind that's basically saying to you, like, you know, is this working? Like, is this working, the dynamic that we have with what I'm doing or what you're doing professionally, and like, where is it potentially helping or hindering our relationship? I say this because Venus might be your partner, and you might notice that there is something that's changing, or maybe you're noticing that you want to take a step back, you want to make a career change, maybe you're thinking going back to something that you used to do, or doing something more creative. This may require you to sit down and talk to a partner, or talk to existing clients, or even to like a job coach or a career coach in some way, to help you reformulate and figure out what direction you're going in. You may feel like there's a slowing down effect when it comes to your goals, but it's like a wonderful time to reevaluate and decide if it is time to go into another direction. The challenge here is that it does seem that as this retrograde is happening, something is also coming to an end, because Venus rules your 12th house. So for you to make a segue, something else has to kind of show up, and it does require the support or the filling in of other people. Those of you guys who are Scorpio risings that are single, I do think that this is going to be a much easier retrograde, because it's going to give you guys the opportunity to connect with people and go, wow, I could change my status in the world. Maybe I've always been single. Now I'm in a relationship. Do I want this relationship? You know, how am I going to identify now out in the world? Who do I tell? And it can be about kind of clearing out some old deep-seated relationship fears that you have. If you're having friction in relationships, for those of you guys who are partnered, this is a little bit more difficult because, you know, Venus rules your partner, and it's going to square off with Jupiter and Uranus. So your business partner or your spouse or your committed partner is going to be saying, we need to keep growing, we need to keep doing something different, or I need you to change something in regards to what your goals are, so we can better kind of come together. And the Venus-Uranus square seems to indicate that there's something that's not really jiving when it comes to the direction of your career versus your home and domestic life. So for some of you guys, you may be having talks about, okay, is this relationship even going to work? You know, can we continue to keep moving forward? And it can definitely be some stressful stuff. You want to be really mindful that if you are not seeing eye to eye with a relationship, if you do end up kind of going your separate ways, because Venus rules the 12th house and everything that's hidden, suddenly your private life can be splattered all over in public, and people are going to be very aware if you're having some relationship issues, and it can become, yeah, kind of just like airing out your dirty laundry. My advice is to try to find ways to find a happy medium. And I think that with Venus in a sextile to the South Node, some Scorpio risings may actually really benefit in clearing out old, outdated views of relationships, and be seeking counseling or therapy with their partners, and be taking time to like rest and recuperate, and finding ways to build consistency and routine with that North Node in the 6th house. So you know when it's time to work and when it's time to do things, versus when it's time to focus on relationships or partnerships. So there's like a much more clearly defined line there. The card that I get is the Hermit card, which is interesting because it can be kind of mirroring, talking about you know, things changing during Virgo season. It can be talking also about like this being a process of you really having to ask yourself what you want, taking time to like kind of rest and reflect. It can talk about you becoming more aware of like what you need, but needing that alone time to figure it out. So some of you guys might be kind of like, oh, you know, I would like to just be alone for a little bit, or I'd like to have my own time to kind of explore and figure out what it is that I need. And so that can also be about kind of taking like a little bit of like a hiatus from work until you figure out what it is that you would like to do, and you can kind of get back into it in the fall. Okay. Good luck, Scorpio. For Sag and Sag rising, we have got a Venus retrograde taking place in the sign of Leo, which will be in your natal 9th house, and it is in a fellow sister sign. So you're going to experience and really benefit from some fire trines, Sag. So Venus going retrograde in the 9th house does have connections to reevaluating your belief system, your philosophy. You might return back to a place that you have visited or traveled before. Some of you guys might decide to go back to college, go back and get a certification. Maybe you're going to be reconnecting with a teacher or a mentor of some sort. and figuring out like what the purpose is of life, right? There can be a little bit of like a spiritual crisis and kind of questioning your faith with a Venus retrograde here. Venus retrograde is going to be also tied to Taurus, or your 6th house, which is about health, wellness, and routine, and your 11th house, which is about friends and goals and networks. So I could see those of you guys who are supposed to be like traveling somewhere with a friend, there is like a breakdown and there's like a schedule issue. I could see some of you guys also like as you're on a trip realizing that you're not seeing eye to eye with a friend. This can definitely bring some legal related issues with a retrograde of the 9th house and a connection to the 6th. So some of you guys might go, well, I need somebody to help me navigate this legal issue, or I need somebody to help navigate getting something organized or getting something prepared. You might have to hire somebody to take care of your pets while you travel. Retrograde here is not the worst though, because you are going to get a number of trines to the North Node in the 5th, and also to your sun, moon, or your rising. So it will be lively at the very least. I do think that some of you guys might also start reevaluating if you want to publish something, teach something, share something, tell your story in some way. So that might be interesting. And it's a really great time if you do own your own business to start thinking about marketing campaigns and drumming up new ways to kind of market or advertise your business. And I think that'll go clear into September as you have a Mercury retrograde in your 10th house as well. I think about this is also like about having fun and being creative with the trines to the North Node. So for some of you guys, it's like going on an extended trip or a vacation and really enjoying yourself and kind of immersing yourself in probably a very long overdue potential trip. Yes, there can be love abroad. There can be relationships and people that you connect with further away. That's very possible. And a change that can be going on also in regards to your belief when it comes to productivity or work in some fashion. The card that I get for you is the King of Swords, which is an air sign individual. So this can be about Geminis, Libras, or Aquarians that come into the mix and help you in some way. This can also be about you going, I'm finally going to write that story. I'm finally going to take that class. Like I want to learn something. I want to master something. So think about something that maybe you started learning or reading or educating yourself on that you didn't complete. You may feel like it's time to master that and go back and complete that. But it can also be a time you're just being more direct about your beliefs and your philosophy and really wanting to share that with the world. And also like really, I think being like a little bit more assertive. But this is about being assertive about what life is all about. You're very familiar with 9th house energy. So even though it's Leo, 9th house is traditionally associated with Sag. So for all these planets to be there, it's about you kind of figuring out, okay, what do I need to do to become happy overall? How do I bring in more of that? What do I need to do? What do I need to learn to bring that into my life? Okay. Good luck, Sag. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You'll be experiencing a Venus retrograde in Leo in your natal 8th house. Oof. So the 8th house is joint resources, right? Taxes, inheritances, partners' income, other people's money. It can also be about savings. It can be about payoffs from investments. And so a retrograde here is kind of interesting because this does quincunx or in conjunct your sign Capricorn in particular. It's really rubbing Pluto in your sign the wrong way. And Pluto has an energy that is also related to the 8th house. So there's like a lot of, what am I afraid to finally deal with? What am I afraid to finally heal or acknowledge or uncover? I think that's a lot of the retrograde. And it's hard to find the sun in the 8th house. Like it's hard to like shine a light on things. So I would imagine when the sun and Venus come into conjunction, there is some kind of like finding out something about the future of career or the future of happiness or the future of investments. There can be like a significant decision or determination also about whether or not you have control over an estate or something that you're supposed to be getting from a partner or a spouse or an insurance matter. Venus rules your 10th house of relationships and reputation. I say relationships because it's Libra. So this can be I'm married, I'm divorced, I'm single, I'm working with this person, I work for myself. There is naturally, when the South Node goes to the 10th house in any sign, less focus and emphasis on the career, because the South Node does represent this kind of stepping away from vibe. So it'll be about 18 months with the South Node going through the 10th house. Yes, some of you guys will retire. Some of you guys will quit your jobs, change jobs, focus more on being home, maybe working from home, becoming parents, starting home-based businesses, getting involved in real estate, taking care of family members, the list goes on. So something about this makes me wonder, you're going to have a Venus retrograde here, which means there can be cutbacks at work. There can be changes going on with budgets. There can be, finding out like, whoa, we're not getting bonuses, or we're going to have to kind of cut back on hours. That can come up from this particular retrograde, which may prompt and push you to go deeper into how can I be creative? What can I drum up? What can I create? What side hustles can I have? With the squares to Jupiter and Uranus in your 5th house. This is also where you talk more about insurance or joint resources with other people, especially relating to children. So some of you guys might be like, how do I navigate insurance if I'm, potentially changing my job or losing my job? How much money am I putting into a 401k and investing? And there can definitely be an opportunity to go back through issues with investments or issues with taxes and remedy these problems. We can see some challenges in the romance department. If you're in like a casually kind of committed relationship, there can be some drama in relationships and maybe even some jealousy, or overdoing it, overindulging, overspending, over partying can come up here as well. I think the biggest aspect for me, though, is, the fact that this is really encouraging you to reevaluate your joint resources so that way you can make the changes necessary in your 4th house. Debt reconsolidation can be a theme here, and also going back and asking people for assistance or refinancing something as well. Watch for the inconjuncts to Pluto. It's going to be felt pretty intensely, and that's whether or not you're open to like actually making this change. Especially when it either comes to your career or how you're looking at changes with joint income. The card that I get for you is the Fool card, which I think is going to talk specifically about when Venus is in a square to Uranus, which is really encouraging you to like break free, do something different, take a chance, be expressive, like get outside of your comfort zone. Definitely turning over a new leaf, initiating new things, and at the very least, it being interesting, even if it means that you have to kind of really face some of your fears or some harsh truths about either your resources or some things that are going on with like intimacy with other people. You can feel like there is less support from other people with a retrograde in the 8th house, which is prompting you to kind of look at new creative ways, like I said, to drum up resources or make changes in your career. So I encourage you to embrace that because it looks like it's going to be a new, fresh start for you. Good luck. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you will be experiencing Venus retrograde in Leo in your natal 7th house. This is all about relationships and partnerships. So whether it's clients, committed partnerships, or spouses, a Venus retrograde is definitely going to bring a reevaluation of our committed relationships. For those of you guys that are single, you may also be one of the signs that potentially hears from people from the past. So keep in mind that exes might be calling, reconnecting, or checking in some way. Now, a retrograde in the 7th can also be an undoing or a changing direction in certain commitments and agreements. Definitely not a time to be focusing on getting married, getting engaged, planning these things. I would just kind of pump the brakes a little bit because of the aspects, to be honest with you. Now, Venus rules your 4th house of home and family. It also rules your 9th house, which deals with travel, philosophy, but also ceremonies. So I could see some of you guys that are talking about, either changes with your relationship with partners, maybe even with children, because Leo is on the 7th house. It can mean where there is like a change going on in a relationship and it's impacting the home or the family. So if you are one of those Aquarians that has the Venus retrograde and there's challenges in relationships, it can be, well, how does that impact my home life? Is somebody moving in? Are they moving out? Are we talking about, separating? Does that actually mean that we have to, sell a home, or we have to pay something off, or that I have to relocate? It can also mean where there's issues in regards to partners not getting along well with family and vice versa. And if you're experiencing unhappiness in an existing relationship, you may find that there are people from the past who pop up that might be reaching out further away. So there's this is a little bit more of a challenging energy because it is your opposite sign. I think the Venus-Uranus squares are going to be the most telling because it can talk about where you're having challenges with relatives and how it's actually affecting like relationships. And so you might find there are certain relatives you can't leave at home alone with a spouse or with a significant other because there's going to be some drama. And there can be some pushback about moving in together, settling into a relationship, getting married, and some friction revolving around whether or not you really want that. Pluto's recently been in your sign. So to watch the sun go into your 7th house, it's still in opposition to Pluto. So it can represent where on one hand, there is a need to reevaluate relationships. Do you need to be willing to kind of bend and make sacrifices for other people, or is it time to let them go? And if you're single and you're thinking about getting back into relationships, you can meet people, but it can be people that are pushing you or encouraging you to make a change with either your past or your living situation. So the Venus-Uranus squares are going to be extra potent in your chart. I do feel like this can get you thinking and going deeper in relationships and questioning, what do I want? What am I looking for? Is this the person for me? Can I see, us kind of building into the future together? And I do think that that might be something that really comes up, July, August, September, as you have retrogrades in your 7th as well as your 8th house, which is really reevaluating that connection that you have to other people. Single Aquarians are definitely going to have an opportunity to reconnect with people, potentially from the past. And like I said, it can impact your home life, but people who are committed, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. And you might notice that people are a little hot and cold with you, and then they're a little bit like back and forth. Okay. The card that I got for you is the Queen of Coins. So you're cool as a cucumber. You're like, okay, you come, you go, it's not going to rock me. And I think that's part of the lesson is whatever the retrograde is in your 7th house, it involves other people. Will it affect you? Yeah, when it squares Uranus. And it's only going to affect you if it's trying to get you to move or trying to get you to make changes in your living situation or with your family. But I think the key here is for you to be cool, calm, and collected. The Queen of Coins can also be like an earth sign, so a Taurus, a Virgo, or a Capricorn that comes in that helps kind of guide you or gives you some kind of advice or talks to you about making practical decisions and choices, and just being really firmly grounded in reality and what's going to be best for you physically as well as financially. So this can be somebody who can give you advice, moving forward in your relationships and really like thinking things through before you make any big decisions. This can also be about a relationship or a partnership of some kind. So somebody maybe who's coming in that's wanting to partner with you or talking to you about doing some kind of work together. I'm always a little hesitant about agreeing to anything definitively during a Venus retrograde in the 7th. I do feel like people who are meant to come in can come in, but there can also be opportunities to clear karma. So be very mindful of who you're committing to. Good luck. And finally, we have Pisces and Pisces rising. You will be experiencing a Venus retrograde in Leo in your natal 6th house, which is all about health and routine and diet and your workspace and your pets. Truth be told, Venus is not the most comfortable in this position because it does represent delays and challenges and sacrifice and not getting your needs met. So for some of you guys, it can be the precursor of this relationship's not really working. Somebody doesn't have their shit together. We're doing a little bit of a back and forth. I'll kind of hang tight and see how things go, but inevitably be very mindful of that October period when you may decide that you kind of have to just pull the plug on a relationship and you might say, this is not good enough. We can be more critical when Venus is in the 6th house. And so when I think of like Venus retrograding coming into conjunction with Mercury, you want to pay attention to that date next week because likely it can be that somebody's giving you some kind of insight about what they can and cannot do, what they are or are not ready for. And there can definitely be a sense of feeling like you need space with Mars and Saturn in opposition all week. Now, Venus has connections to the 3rd house of communication, living, vehicles, contracts, and ideas, and also the 8th house of merger and joint resources and finances. So I kind of get the vibe that with this retrograde, there's going to be like a taking space from someone or something, holding off moving forward and collaborating with someone or something, and really trying to allow there to be some more time before you connect and tell somebody what you want or what you think. Now, you may feel like people are really pushing you, or they're being kind of eager as well, because Mars is going through your 7th house, and that you're really waiting to kind of take a step back and see, okay, like, you know, what can I kind of better make happen for myself? If I'm not getting fulfillment, or if I'm not feeling good about a relationship, or something feels like it's out of whack, you know, where can I add a little bit more pleasure, Venus, to my routine? This can mean, you know, like positive self-care, radical self-care, buying yourself flowers, treating yourself well, eating well, working out, being more physically active. It might mean that you decide that you want to start practicing mantras, or maybe you're deciding that you want to start creating a little bit of time in your schedule to create, to journal, to write. Maybe it means that you're just focusing on speaking more kindly to yourself. And it can be a time also where, you know, people are revealing their true selves to you, because it's 12th house to the 7th. So something may come out about, you know, somebody says, oh, this is what I can and cannot give you, and this is what I'm dealing with. And you're kind of like shocked by what they tell you. Because Venus rules the 8th house of joint resources as well, I think a Venus retrograde can kind of indicate like there can be financial cutbacks. You may not feel like you have as much support emotionally or financially from other people, which is kind of really putting the pressure on you with the North Node in your 2nd house to go, okay, I have to drum up these resources. It has to be me. So the Venus retrograde can actually be about you finding ways to be more productive. Healers, practitioners, healthcare workers, they can come in and they can be helpful. But not always. And you may find actually that you can get mixed results with a retrograde in the 6th house. So I would be really cautious about starting any new health routines, or joining clubs or spas, or even like working with specific trainers. Yes, you know, consistency will yield results, but it's not going to be something you see overnight. In my opinion, it's also going to be more mind over matter. That if the focus is about, you know, finding balance in your life, it's what you're giving to yourself. And once you get into your routine, when you do reconnect with people that you feel like you've had some space from, you might realize, I don't really know if they have anything to offer me. And like, I'm really working hard on myself and my standards are really high. I don't know if they can give me what I want. And so the next couple of months might be about working and being healthier and more productive. And you have to see if you can connect with somebody who can kind of meet you halfway. Be mindful of that, and also just the fact that this is a really great time for healing and clearing out and like detoxing, because of Venus's connection to your 8th house. You might realize that physical health might go hand in hand with having better mental or emotional health as well. The card that I got for you is the 3 of Swords. So I do feel like this is about healing something physically or emotionally. A Venus retrograde in the 6th house and a Saturn retrograde in the 1st definitely tells me some of you guys might be recovering from an injury, but it can also be a heartbreak. There can be a sense of being like, I'm just trying to overcome something and I'm having a difficult time and I need to kind of really fix this. So the first step with the 3 of Swords is pulling the swords out, right? Removing the swords so you can kind of treat the wound. So finally going back and realizing that certain patterns, certain health issues, certain habits are actually the root or connected to the root of what's been like some heartbreak that needs to be worked out. Rebuilding yourself, building yourself strong with the North Node in the 2nd house, focusing on self-esteem. So that way, when the fall comes around, you can go, it's not good enough, you know, or I've been investing so much in myself, I'm not willing to lower my standards. High standards, low expectations. That's what's ultimately going to protect you and give you the opportunity to kind of heal this wound. I hope that was helpful for you guys, and I look forward to talking more at length in terms of talking about the details of this particular retrograde. Stay tuned for that video later this week. I'm currently putting that together. As a reminder, we do have live readings by donations, and we're going to be doing that on Friday evening. So it'll be 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. This week will be live tarot. So if you would like to get in the queue and get your reading, check my community tab on Thursday so you can sign up in advance. It's fun. We have lots of people that come through there. You can hang out in the chat, listen to other readings, and make a donation if you would like one. Equally, like I said, that Venus retrograde webinar is live on my website, so I'll plug a link to that if you guys want to pick that up and you want to see the full presentation on this retrograde. Equally, while you're there, make sure you sign up for my newsletter so you're alerted as to when I have new products and other things coming out. We've got a whole list of things. I'm going to have like more print products in the fall for you guys. Those of you guys who liked my 2023 Astro calendar, we're putting some other stuff together for you that's really exciting. I also have brand new products on my website. You guys can check out not just my courses, but also my brand new intention candle line. There's 9 different candles that I've put together that all have specific intentions. And I know we've got Mercury retrograde coming up, so I've got a Mercury candle on there if that's something that interests you guys. And if you guys would like, while you're there, consider booking a reading with me. I am booking in September and October right now. Check out beyondtheveiledtarot.com if you guys would like to connect with me and see what I have to offer. Solar return readings for your birthdays, synastry, election dates, natal charts, and so much more. I offer live sessions on Zoom, as well as reports that I will send to you guys in your email box. And until Tuesday, I will be back. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday and you enjoy this really peak period astrologically. Be mindful that changes in the air. It's all about how you guys respond to what's going down. Leave me your comments below. I'd love to hear from you, especially if you're new. Make sure you're subscribed so that way we can stay in touch. And I will be back here on Tuesday. Enjoy your comfy Sunday at home. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.